The purpose of board committees is to assist the board perform its functions. So regularly considering the structure, the role and the operation of board committees is really important to help the board function well. In a lot of the work that I do though, I see board committee structures that have sat there for 10, 20 years and may be addressed in a piecemeal way in terms of updating charters, but never a holistic consideration of whether we've got the right board committee structure in place. So I thought it might be useful just to share some insights around board committees, their structure, their role and operations. So the first one in terms of structure I think is really important to consider in terms of the contemporary role of the board. So some of the more contemporary board committees that we're seeing are audit and risk, either together or separate, and I've done a previous Board Whisper episode on that matter. Looking at a people and culture committee, typically they absorb the functions of a nominations and remuneration committee, plus add some more contemporary roles and functions that are aligned to workplace health and safety, mental health, well-being, etc. And then also looking perhaps at the need for a sustainability committee, and that's coming up particularly for those organisations who are likely to be captured by the mandatory sustainability reporting that's soon to come into place. Whatever it is, it's really important in terms of structure that each of the committees has a very careful and well-considered board charter that sets out its role, sets out its functions, composition, operations and processes. In terms of looking at those role and those functions, it's also important that they're aligned to contemporary issues that happen at the board. Now, some issues can be dealt with at board level, but usually when there's new areas arising, the board will ask committees to look at it. So a question you might ask yourself is the board, or should a board committee in our case, be considering things like artificial intelligence and its impact, sustainability if it's not already considered in a separate committee, cyber risk, data governance. So all of those areas are relatively new and they should be considered either at board or committee level. The third area is the operations of committee. So each committee should have an annual work plan that sets out basically how the committee is going to perform its functions as per its charter on an annual basis. Sometimes though what we hear is that there can be an overlap or there can be a duplication across the committees and again between the committees and the board. So what are some things that might be useful? I think first of all having a matrix setting out functions of each of the committees and how they interrelate can be useful if you think you've got an overlap. Good communication between the committee chairs and having perhaps some say quarterly meetings between the committee chairs might be useful, and in some cases board committees having at least partly joint meetings on an irregular basis can be useful. It's also really important to look at the information that the committee is getting and what it's reporting to the board. And whilst the board's ultimately accountable and does need to oversee matters that are considered by committees, it doesn't have to look at everything. So there shouldn't be a complete duplication of committee pack up to a board. Rather, the committee chair should be thinking about what are the important items that we need to distill out of this committee meeting and take to the board, either for its approval or for its consideration. And for this reason, it can be really useful for board committees to meet 1 or 2 weeks before a board meeting to give time for that refinement of the pack before it goes to the board. So hopefully some useful things there about how you can maximise the value of your board committees.